Hi everyone, welcome to Homeschool Autism Life. My name is Jamie. If you're new, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're not new, thanks for coming back and spending time with me. Today's video, or this week's video, I wanted to chat about how I adapt MathUSee for my autistic son, who isn't a huge fan of holding a pencil or writing with a pencil or coloring with the pencil crayon or any of that sort of activity, and how I've kind of had to adapt life to the fact that that is the case and yet have him do school. So I'm going to share a little bit more information on how I do that. Now, I'm not sure how this video is going to work exactly just yet because I am trying to make sure that you can see a bunch of different things, including hopefully a little bit of my son. He's kind of being like, no, I don't want to do math today. And I'm like, kind of have to. So this is my life with a very reluctant learner and trying to get him to be interested in writing. So the first thing that I did or had to do over the course of many months, and this is part of the discussion, is you're going to try a bunch of things and they may work and they may not. And it's okay if it's a process and it takes time, especially for our special needs kids who, have different needs and it's not readily available to us. They can't tell us, or it's not specific. And so we have to kind of, fumble our way around in the dark as we try to, figure out what works best for them. So as time, I used to print off everything, and then we would have this battle in which I would be like, you're doing it, and he'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not. And we would have this constant power struggle back and forth. And so what I started doing was he kept asking computer. So I'm like, oh, you want to do math on the computer? And he said yes. And so I was like, okay, you're not allowed to fight me on this. And so that's essentially what happened, was that he stopped fighting me and we found this kind of happy medium. Now, he still isn't a particularly big fan of math, but he can do it, and he's getting better and better at it every day. Now, my 12-year-old son is doing MathUSee beta, and what I love about MathUSee in particular is that it is very straightforward and simple. There is not a lot of confusing text. There's not a lot of, I don't know, this lighting went all funky on me. There's not a lot of confusion on the page. There's not a lot of stuff on the page to get confused by. And it's just straightforward instructions, and this is how you do it, and you can watch the video lesson. Darien and I don't usually do because his attention span isn't that much, and thankfully, this is pretty simplistic math, even for me who didn't do super awesome in math myself, but it's very basic, and so it's very helpful, and it just goes through the steps of, this is what you need to know, and this is the next step, and that's what I really like about it. And, it's just important that we kind of have a firm foundation, especially with our special needs kids. We don't want to muddy up the water with, let's do this 4 or 5 different ways. I found jump math to be that way. It was like, let's do the same addition problem 4 or 5 different ways, and you pick which one is best. And I was like, why don't we just do the really simple one and not confuse matters for him? So what I did was I took a lesson. Now, the one thing I will say is your first lesson is going to take the longest to kind of transcribe into the computer, because it is usually the one where there's a different sort of information or questions being asked. So with this one in particular, I picked MathUSee lesson number 9C because I still have that in my computer. He's well past that now, but I wanted to just kind of show you. So what I did, and I'm going to see if I can get this to focus on it for you. Yep. So I just did a grid, and this is excuse me, this is Google Drive. And so there's a bunch of different things in the, and I don't know why this went all small and teeny tiny on me, but there's actually different things, the format, the tools, the insert, that I could actually do this all on. And I figured out what grid number I needed. And then I do everything that is in the manual, I do in bold. And so any answer he fills, I try to remember to unbold it, and then those are his answers. Now I'm just going to, if it'll let me, scroll down. So this had 5 and 50, where he was skip counting at this point. And so all of those are his answers. And then you can also insert pictures. And so that's what I did for counting. Our money is Canadian money, and so I made sure that it was Canadian. And then I also was able to insert this because you can insert pictures you find on the internet. And then what I've done since, and I didn't do it here, was I make every word problem something that Darien can relate to. So this one is Sue has 3 nickels and Bob has 2 dimes. Which one has more money? And so what I would do here is I would change the names to Darien and his sister Anara, which one has more money, and then it's a little bit more applicable to him, and so then he finds it more interesting. So I'm going to again do a little switcheroo and go to something a little bit harder. So what we've been doing more recently is beta 13. And what I would love to share is that one of the things that Darien has been doing that he wasn't really before was I was always the one driving how and where. Oh, it's taking a minute to load. How or where the cursive, or the cursor, the thing that tells you where you're going to type things. I was the one driving that primarily on my own, and it meant that I was here for the whole lesson, and I still am for the most part. But what I'm finding as we do this is he is learning the computer skill to move the cursor to the next question, and the next question, and the next question. He knows how to carry or regroup. He knows how to do that now. And so there's a lot of things that he is doing, and I'm just there to kind of help guide in the event that he gets confused or forgets to do something or whatever. So I'm going to flip over to MathUSee 13C. Okay. And like I said, once you have the first lesson done, then essentially it's really straightforward for you to just, go back, change the numbers, because the formatting is already done, because you already did that work. So I find that to be pretty straightforward as well. But is this the right one? No, it's D. I was on the right page before. So this is the thing that I have found too, is that depending on how many questions, sometimes I will do less. And I don't know if this is one of those lessons or not, but I don't know if you can see the book itself because my head is in the shadow. But essentially what I've done is I've actually gone through and I have fixed, I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's because So my brain, I'm sitting there going, oh no, I didn't do the right one. I did do the right one. So what I'm doing essentially is exactly what I said, where I will definitely take out some questions. I didn't do 13 and 14 in the subtraction because it was getting long already. But this is the stuff that Darien can do, and this is a partially empty one. I think mainly just because I didn't erase it fully yet is what I'm thinking I did, because I transcribed this after a long day of lessons, so sometimes brains don't work very well and I forget to do the line or stuff. So that's kind of what I do, but I set up the computer exactly like you see here. And Darien has a little finger caught that he got with one of the little pencil manipulatives to help him work on his pencil grip, which doesn't happen at all anymore. So I've actually cut those things. It's like a 3-pronged one, and I cut one off, and that's what he uses when he doesn't want to touch the keyboard. There are other times, though, and it might be in the video, where he actually types with his toes, and you just go, okay, it's going to take way longer, and you have to have the patience to allow him to do that. But usually what I will say is, okay, what do you need to get, Darien? And he'll say 3 plus 7 plus 6. And I go, okay, go get it. And what he does is then he walks over to the manipulatives that I have just over here, and he will get the 3 and the 7. And sometimes he has to look back and go, oh, and the 6. And then he comes over here and he counts it out. And in this one, you can try and find the 10 in it, but he often will just count it out, and then he moves the cursor down and writes the answer in. So our math has changed and grown and become something completely different than it started out with. I have had to learn to be way more flexible, way more willing to follow his lead on it so that I could get any of it done. And I'm okay with that, but it is a situation with special needs kids that you do have to be a person who adapts to anything and everything on a dime. So I hope that this is helpful for you as you are trying to figure out how to adapt for your children. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.